Ladies and gentlemen, a big Twisted Storytellers welcome for Sandra Ramocan.
I'm 9 years old and I'm living in Jamaica with my maternal grandmother and my brothers. My mother is in New York and she's preparing for us to relocate to this land of opportunity. I remember one day I was in the backyard and I'm sitting under this big mango tree because that's what Caribbean kids do, and I love mangoes, and I remember it being so hot, like 96 degrees in the shade, real hot, that kind of hot. And my only care and concern that day was keeping cool for sure, but also how many of these mangoes can I stuff down today? And then all of a sudden, I heard my grandmother screaming my name, Sandra, Sandra. I'm thinking, why this woman disturbed my mango piece today? But I also was thinking, you know what? Don't ever let a Caribbean mother call you twice. So I got up and I ran to her, and my brothers were inside, and she said, your mommy's coming home. I was uber excited because by this time, I hadn't seen my mother for over a year. The next morning, I put on my little dress. It was red and lacy. I was a hot mama from a long time ago. I put that dress on, and we went to the airport, and I'm looking as the passengers got off the airline, and I kept looking, and what seemed like an hour, I still didn't see my mother, and then finally, I saw my mother, and she was in a wheelchair. What is that about? Anyway, I let that go, and we went home, and we spent a great night together, and the next morning I got up, and my mother was not there. And so I asked my aunt, where's my mommy? And she said, your mommy is in the hospital. And I thought, well, she's a nurse, so, you know, that's fair. I waited the whole day for her, fell asleep, and the next morning I got up, and my grandmother was sitting at the edge of the bed crying. And she pulled me in, and she said, your mommy is dead. I said, dead? I couldn't get this 9-year-old mind to wrap itself around that idea that my mother was dead. I remember running outside and sitting down, and I had a twig, and I just kept making circles in the ground and saying, this is a dream, and I'm gonna wake up, but it wasn't a dream. One of the last requests that my mom had was that I return to my birth home, which was the Bahamas, with my dad. And my grandmother packed up all of my little things, and I got on that plane, and I remember sitting and putting my head on the window and just sobbing because I was leaving behind my beloved grandmother, my 2 wonderful brothers who loved me and spoiled me and still spoil me, and the only life I knew. I got to the Bahamas, and there's my dad, and he's, you know, just so jubilant. And at the time, I had a really thick Jamaican accent, and that seemed to entertain him for some reason. So I'm in the car, and we're driving, and he's like, what's your name? And I'm like, my name's Sandra Coakley. He's like, what's your name? My name's Sandra Coakley. I'm thinking, you know, you're a lawyer. You should have more words than that for me. Shoot. But we drove on, and we got home, got to the house, and pulled up to this expanse of a home, and my dad had done well for himself. And we walked in, and there was my stepmother and my 2 younger siblings. What I quickly found out was that I was not wanted there. I would hear my stepmother in the next room telling my dad, why did you bring her here? Why don't you send her back? Nobody wants her. And my dad would say, that's my daughter. I want her, and I love her. Her behavior quickly escalated into physical abuse. I would secretly call her Cruella de Vil. I was Cinderella on steroids. One morning I'm getting ready and I'm in the tub, and I don't know what hit that woman, but she barged inside that bathroom and she took my head and she slammed it on the side of the tub. I remember having a headache for almost a week. In the moment, I watched this big knot just get bigger and bigger, and I'm thinking, what new story am I gonna make up now to tell the teachers why I have another scar on my body? The teachers already knew something was going on. It was just a matter of time before I was moved out of the house, and I went to live with my father's sister, and she loved me. And for 2 years, I just enjoyed the love of my aunt. And then here comes Cruella de Vil. And I'm thinking, what she want now? She was crying, and she said, Sandra, please come back home. I promise I will never hit you again. And against the better judgment of my aunt, I packed up my stuff and went home, and she kept her promise. She really did. She never hit me again. But what came next? The mental, emotional, verbal abuse. You'll never be nothing. I should have told her that wasn't proper English. You little bastard. Nobody wants you. I was in a hellhole, and I wanted to get out. And then my time came. I got accepted to college, and it was my way out. I landed on the campus of Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. Go Bears. I was so excited, I could exhale. I felt light, and I felt happy. And while I was there, y'all, I met the man of my dreams. He was a football player, legs to die for. Man, he was fine. Like F-O-O-I-N-E-E, fine. That kind of fine. And he made me feel so loved, so safe, and so secure. We had a really good relationship until junior year. He graduated, and we went our separate ways. I was devastated. By senior year, though, I met this man that would eventually be my husband, and by 22, I was married. But I remember something. When I was on that airplane going to college, I told myself that when I was finished, I would never, ever go back to that house to live. I wanted to go back to my beautiful Bahama land, but not to that house. And here I am, married at 22. By 24, I had 2 babies. I was scared. I was confused. And at the same time, guess what? My student visa is expired. I am now illegal. And so we found an immigration lawyer to file the petition for me to get my green card. What the lawyer said was that because my husband was just a green card holder, I would have to wait 6 years before I got called in for an interview. And it would be $1,200, and he set up a payment plan. Those were the longest 6 years of my life. I thought everybody knew that I was illegal. I was a prisoner to my own home. I was so scared to leave. And then one day, I said, I'm out. The police came, and he was riding right behind me. I told you, I freaked out because I thought he was on a mission to get me and deport me. I wet my pants that day, y'all. Well, the 6 years finally came. And I would run to the post box, every single day looking for this letter. First day, no letter. Months, no letter. And then finally the day came. And there was the letter. It said, Immigration and Naturalization Service. I was so excited. I ran inside, and I ripped that thing open, and I started to read, and it said, you must report to the Baltimore-Washington International Airport to room 202. I remember the number. At 9 o'clock. I was like, what? This wasn't the letter I was waiting for. I remember the air being sucked out of me, and I just kind of slumped and fell on the couch, and I bawled. When I gathered myself, I called the attorney, and I told him what was going on, and he said, Mrs. Ramocan, hold up. I have 2 things to tell you. One, you better not go to that airport, because that's a deportation letter. And number 2, your husband never made a payment, and so after several years, we closed your file. I was like, what? I was livid. You talk about a hot mama? I was hot as hell. How could he do this? I had waited all these years. I couldn't work. I was evicted from one house to another house to another house. We moved 15 times. You hear me say 15 times? 15 times when we were not in the military. I was going from one food line to another food line to another Focus Hope line. That government cheese made some good macaroni, though. I was so depressed. I thought I'd left the hellhole and I found myself in a fiery furnace. By now, I had 4 kids. I was fertile myrtle. And just totally confused and homebound because I was so scared. I remember being home, homeschooling my kids, and I got to know the sounds of the utility trucks because they came to my house so often to turn the stuff off. I remember one time the water was shut off and I had to use a 5-gallon paint bucket, and I took the Farmer Jack grocery bag and lined that paint bucket so that my babies could have someplace to poop. What in the H-E double hockey stick? That's my big girl curse word. What in the hell is that? You know what? I sat back and I thought, what kind of fake Jamaican he is anyway? I thought Jamaicans had 4 and 5 jobs. By 2002, I said, come hell or high waters, I'm getting that green card. An amnesty came, and I applied. And what do you know? They denied me. I found out that amnesty is for people who entered the country illegally. Lucky for me, I entered the country legally. So I didn't let that deter me, because every time I look at those babies, my 4 babies, I thought, and I looked at my degree, I'm like, you know what, I gotta take care of those babies, and I got a degree and I could do something with myself. So I went on a hunt to find somebody to help me get this green card. I had been illegal from 1987 all the way till 2004. Couldn't work, being thrown out, had to take any kind of handouts to halfway meet the necessities of my children. And finally, I got that green card. I was so excited. After I thanked the Lord, the first thing I did, I got in that car and I went through the tunnel and I went to Canada, because, you see, all those years I stood on this side of the water and I looked over it and I said, one day when I'm free, I'm going to cross that border. And I did. And so, after 32 years, I said, adios, amigo, to the man. I took back control of my life. Those babies that have gone through the ups and a whole lot of downs with me, they got through high school, they got through college. I lost 50 of the many pounds that I packed on while I wasn't feeling so much of a hot mama. I went back to school and got my master's degree and landed a job that really catapulted me into my purpose. And today, I work for an organization, Alternatives for Girls, where we're meeting and talking to a lot of young women. We're serving young women and older women. And I get the opportunity, I am truly blessed to serve these women, some of them who have gone through so many things, just like me. And I can educate and empower and encourage these women. Because, you know, this is what I know, that there is power in forgiveness. There's freedom in forgiveness. I chose to forgive my stepmother, and today we are the best of friends. I talk to her every day. This is what I know, that when I thought that and I felt that life had really dealt me the worst hand ever, and when my life was so rough, when I felt unwanted and when I felt unloved, God just came in and he picked up those pieces and all the fragmented pieces of my life, and he put them back together. He put me on the potter's wheel, and he molded and reshaped me into this beautiful masterpiece. This is what I know, that God gave me beauty for all those ashes. What I know is that there is purpose in the pain. I know that God still has a plan for my life. I am thoroughly convinced that the things that came to kill me are the very things that made me stronger. And today, I'm not just a Bahama mama, which I am, but I am unabashedly, unequivocally, undeniably a very hot mama. Thank you.
Sandra Ramocan.